So we're going to review chapter 5 about supply. First, one thing you need to know is the law of supply, which is very similar to the law of demand. If you remember, law of demand is that as prices decrease, demand will increase. People want more of the stuff if it's cheaper. Well, law of supply is similar except reversed. If prices go up, then suppliers want to produce more. If something's more valuable, more expensive, people are going to want to make more of it, so they're going to supply more. So you have this little graph here, just like with the demand. As price goes up, demand is low, but as price goes down, demand is higher. Well, supply is the exact opposite. As price goes up, the quantity supplied goes up. Now, obviously, in the real world, suppliers aren't going to make this amount unless they can sell this amount. So you're really going to end up in that sort of equilibrium where there's the right balance of the amount demanded and supplied, so that suppliers can make as much as they can sell, but they're not making extra. So everything works out in that balance. That's that whole invisible hand again, that we don't need a planned economy where the government comes in and says how much to produce or what the price is. The economy naturally just figures it out. That's the invisible part of the invisible hand. Nobody's directing it, nobody's planning it, but it all works out, and we end up with the right amount of materials. Subsidy, another term that you need to understand for this unit. A subsidy is government payment to encourage or protect a certain economic activity. It can be a payment directly to a producer to help them produce things at an affordable price. It can be a payment to a consumer to encourage them to buy something. So, for example, Energy Star rebates. Energy Star is a program that rates the energy efficiency of household appliances. Back in December, I bought a new refrigerator. And one of the things that encouraged me to buy that new refrigerator is Lakeland Electric is giving a $200 rebate to anybody who buys an appliance that is Energy Star rated. So when I was shopping for refrigerators, I could consider whatever the price is, it's $200 cheaper. Because I'm going to pay the full price, but then Lakeland Electric is going to give me $200 back. So that's a subsidy to encourage the economic activity of buying higher efficiency appliances. Electric car rebates, same sort of thing. Right now, the federal government has a program that you can get up to $7,500 tax credit if you buy electric cars. And there are all sorts of requirements. So one of them is that the electric car has to be manufactured in the United States. So the federal government is not only trying to encourage people to buy electric cars, they're trying to encourage people to buy American-made electric cars to support the economic activity in America of building cars. Farm subsidies are a big one. The federal government gives subsidies to farmers in order to help them produce crops at a price that people will pay and compete with foreign or imported foods. And housing subsidies. So, for example, the federal government subsidizes interest rates on houses, encourages people to buy houses, and makes it affordable for them to buy houses. So that's another one. So these are just some examples. There are lots of subsidies out there, but subsidies are an important part of our economy, the way it is structured. Elasticity. We talked about elasticity with demand. So in demand, something is elastic if demand changes a lot based on price. So cookies, for example. If cookies go on sale at Publix, Publix is going to sell more of those cookies because people will want more. If something happened, if there was a national shortage of chocolate chips and chocolate chip cookies doubled in price, people are going to buy fewer. So that's a highly elastic product. But some things, like gas or housing, are less elastic. Now, if gas prices go way up, will people buy less gas? Yeah, they're going to take fewer trips, so there's some elasticity, but are they going to completely stop buying gas? No, because they have to buy some amount of gas just to get to work and stuff like that. Housing, same sort of thing. If housing prices go up, people still have to have a house. They might buy a smaller house or whatever, but it's going to be less elastic than something like fast fashion, which, these new trends come out and people want to buy the new shirt or whatever because it's cool right now, and then in 3 months they're buying something else. So that's highly elastic. Prices will affect it a lot. So supply elasticity, kind of like demand elasticity, but it's in the supply of products. So housing in this case, right now housing prices have gone up a lot in the last year. So you would think if prices have gone up, what should suppliers do? They should want to make a bunch more houses. The problem with that is they can't make houses fast enough. And there's only a certain number of plumbers and a certain number of electricians, so they can't simply double the output of houses right now because they don't have enough tradesmen to make that many houses that quickly. So they can't increase the housing supply fast enough. Gas is the same sort of thing in this case. Gas, there's a certain variability in how much they can produce, but largely our ability to produce gasoline is kind of maxed out. You know, we have oil refineries that turn oil into gasoline, and they're kind of maxed out. We really don't have a lot of ability to increase the amount of gas. So the supply of those is inelastic because there's not a whole lot of wiggle room based on price. Even if prices go up, producers can't really make a lot more. Now, fast fashion, those things, you know, fashion companies can quickly make more if something comes into fashion. If some fashion is the cool new thing, they'll convert their factories into making that very quickly. Okay, so that's supply elasticity. A lot like demand elasticity, but we're talking about the supply.
So how would something that's inelastic look on like the supply thing with like the price and the quantity?
Don't worry about the charts.
Okay.
Just basically have a concept of it, that's it. Okay, short run and long run. So these are a little bit vague, but in planning a business, since when we're talking about supply, we're talking about the business side of it. But when you're planning in a business, you got to think, well, what's the short-term cost, the short-term benefit, the long-term cost, long-term benefit. Short run is time to change just one variable. So if I want to save money in my business and I decide to lay off a bunch of workers, it's going to save me money in the short run because I just cut my labor costs. But what's going to be the long-term cost of that? I'm going to produce less because I have fewer workers. If I have fewer workers, I'm producing less, and in the long run, I'm going to make less money. So sometimes businesses will make the mistake of making a short-term decision, short run, that hurts them in the long term. But you need to consider both those things. So short run just means just one variable is going to change, such as labor costs. You lay off a bunch of workers, you save money on your labor. But in the long run, you're going to find that it affects other things as well, such as your sales and revenue, output, all that kind of stuff. So that's real basic, short and simple. Short run, long run, just it's short term and long term thinking, which probably understand basically. Fixed cost and variable cost, another thing from the standpoint of planning for a business. Fixed costs are costs that remain the same regardless of your output. Variable costs vary with output. So for example, the amount you spend on your building rent. Let's say you are renting a small shop downtown and you sell whatever stationery or something like that. If you're a small business owner, you run the whole business by yourself, but you want to go on vacation. So you close the business for a week or two so you can go on vacation. Are you still going to have to pay rent that month? Yeah, so you're still going to pay rent even though you were closed for a week or two. So your output, your sales, isn't going to change your building rent. If you close, you're going to have zero sales, but you're still paying building rent. So that's a fixed cost. On the other hand, a variable cost is costs that vary with output. So let's say your business, your little small business is going well, sales are going really well, so you decide to hire another person to come in and work or something like that. You want to open up more hours. That's going to change your labor costs. So in order to sell more by being open longer hours, you now have to hire more workers. So that's a variable cost. Any questions on fixed and variable cost? Pretty straightforward. Revenue is money that comes in. When you bring in money, that's revenue. 3 types of revenue that they want you to know about. Total revenue, average revenue, marginal revenue. Total revenue is pretty straightforward. It's all the money you brought in, the total. Okay? Average revenue is pretty straightforward. It's a mathematical average. So you sell a bunch of stuff. What was the average price you sold it for? Marginal revenue. Marginal, what does marginal always mean?
One more.
One more. Okay, in order to sell one more thing, that's your marginal revenue. So let me give you some examples. Let's suppose you have a little pizza place. Okay, you're selling your pizzas for $10 each. So you sell 3 pizzas, they're $10 each. Your total revenue is $30. Your average revenue is $10. 10 plus 10 plus 10 is 30, divided by 3 is 10. So average of $10. Now, let's suppose you've been selling, 3 pizzas, an hour for, a year, and you're like, man, I'd love to sell, 4 pizzas an hour. Wouldn't that be cool? But, how do you get a 4th person to come in and buy your pizza? What's one way, if you want to sell more pizzas, you can easily get people to come in? What's that? Lower the price. Have a coupon or something like that. So let's say you print a certain number of coupons, and all of a sudden a 4th person comes in and they buy their pizza at the discounted price of $7. Okay, well, your total revenue actually would have gone up to $37 there. Average would be, I messed up this PowerPoint, so I'll have to fix this later. So total revenue is now $37. Average revenue is $9.25, which is 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 7 divided by 4, so $9.25. But your marginal revenue is $7. Okay, so I messed up the PowerPoint. Does this make sense the way I explained it? So total revenue is just the total sales, $37. Average is the mathematical average of these, which is $9.25. Marginal is if you want to get one more sale, how much are you going to get from that? In order to get one more person to buy, you need to have a coupon. You're only going to get $7 on that marginal sale. Does that make sense? Okay. So that leads to just a reminder of the stages of production. What are the 3 stages of production? First is increasing, marginal, then diminishing,
and then losing,
and then negative or negative. Most businesses, remember, operate in stage 2, which is diminishing marginal returns. So obviously they want to sell every pizza for the most they possibly can. But is it better to sell $37 worth than $30 worth?
yes.
Yeah. So if you're selling your pizzas at full price, yeah, you want $10 a pizza, great, that's awesome. But if you can only sell 3 at $10, but you could sell 4 if you went to a coupon every now and then, you're going to do that because it's still more money, it's still a profit. The only time they're not going to do this is, let's say the next marginal price is $5. Maybe they have to discount it even more to get one more person in, but their cost making a pizza is $5.50. Well, they're not going to sell a pizza for $5 if it costs them $5.50 to make it. So they're not going to go to the negative marginal returns, okay? But as long as they can still make a profit, they're going to generally want to sell as much as they can. So they're going to go into that diminishing marginal returns. So any questions on that? Okay. And the last thing is the break-even point. This is when the total cost of your business and the total revenue are equal. So for example, if you have that small shop downtown, pizza shop or stationery shop, whatever, and you're paying $1,000 a month in rent, you need to sell $1,000 worth of stuff before you even break even. But obviously you have electricity and all that sort of stuff, so it's really going to be more than $1,000. But you need to sell a certain amount of product in order to break even and not lose money every month. That's the break even point. One time, years ago, I had a friend who was selling a sandwich shop, and he and I talked about whether I'd be interested in buying it, and we kind of figured out I had to sell 200 sandwiches a day in order to break even. So you got to think about that. Can I sell 200 sandwiches a day? If I can, great. If I can't, then it's not a good business. So anyone planning a business is going to figure out that break-even point. So it's an important concept in business. Any questions on any of Chapter 5?